Good afternoon, it's Lee Cassidy from Tactile Technology, and it's my regular Thursday afternoon in the hot seat with Lee Cassidy, where we talk to someone who's been through the Goldman Sachs 10,000 program for small business. And we've got Emma Hammett today, so I'll just bring Emma on. How are you, Emma?
Hi, I'm good, thank you very much.
So first of all, can you give us a bit of a picture about you and your business prior to you doing anything with the Goldman Sachs program? You know, how long had the business been around? What were you delivering at that time? Had you done anything prior to that? So just get a bit of an idea of you and the business before you went through the program.
Okay, so I founded First Day for Life back in 2007. And at that point, it's like an awful lot of businesses where it's sort of you doing everything, or rather me doing everything. So I was training, I was doing all the admin, I was doing all the finance, sorting it out. So I joined Innovating for Growth at the British Library when I'd got to about 100,000, which is the minimum that they will accept you to join Innovating for Growth. So I grew the business to that, and then I joined the British Library and their program, and it's like a very minor version of the Goldman Sachs program. It's really helpful, and for businesses at my stage, it was incredibly helpful. And in fact, Penny Daly was my mentor on Innovating for Growth, and it was Penny that went on to recommend that my next stage would be to try and get onto Goldman Sachs.
So it's a bit of like a structure to help businesses get a bit of an idea how to get a bit more structure around them, like business plan, those kind of things done by the British Library. And they also have a mentoring scheme then. Is that correct?
It is similar to Goldman Sachs, but it's for smaller, well, at the stage I was at, it was for smaller businesses. It now does bigger businesses too, but I had a mentor to support me. I had a separate person that helped me with my marketing. I had a separate person that did various other elements. It didn't get the same team feel that you get with Goldman. Goldman's very, very special, but it was so helpful to me. So what it enabled me to do was to move from a business that's functioning, but it's quite hard work, and it hasn't really got a lot of structure and formality around it because it's just grown organically, to something which had a proper finance structure in place. It had a proper CRM system that meant I could find my clients rather than go through any sort of Excel spreadsheet or something embarrassing to imagine that I was trading to that level, but still operating with quite basic systems. You manage and you slightly penny pinch at that point to make, and what Innovating for Growth did was it actually made me think of myself as a business, which I think sometimes, particularly in a service type industry, you need to actually change your mindset. And then to move on to the Goldman side of things, which I know we're going to talk about in a minute, that was then another big step change when we're talking scale. So Innovating for Growth got the fundamentals in place. So it meant that I was operating legally, I was operating with a decent cash flow, with finances properly structured, so that if the tax man was to knock on my door, that everything would be in order. To look at the best way to move forward, to look at who else I needed to bring in so it wasn't just me. So to start employing people. So it's very much, for me, it was an absolute pivotal moment to transition from a one-man band trading my time for money to a properly structured business. And if I hadn't gone through that, there's no way I would have got anywhere close to being accepted onto Goldman Sachs, because I wasn't a business. Let's be honest. I was profitable, and people wanted to buy my services, but it wasn't structured as it should be, and now it is. So that's good.
Okay, we're getting a little bit of echo, I think, at your end. If you want to just turn your speaker down a tiny bit, so it's just a little bit quieter, the speaker. Just tell me a little bit about your experience then. How, were you already working before you started the business in some kind of service industry with first aid, or was that your first entry into, delivering first aid training and things?
Well, my background was nursing. So I trained as a nurse and worked all the way through, worked for various pharmaceutical companies, worked as a hospital manager for 10 years. So I ended up, I did a diploma in management studies through Kingston University as a hospital manager, which then gave me some really valuable skills. Then marriage and kids, so, which slightly knocks your career off a little bit. And so I trained as an ESOL teacher. So I did a teacher training type thing, which then meant that I was able to pull the teacher training, the medical nursing type side of things, and actually put it together into something that I felt really passionate about and turn it into a business, and a business that works.
So what made you think of, doing first aid as a business, other than you had the two pieces together, that, knowledge of the medical side, and also now you could teach because you'd done the teacher training? What made you think, there's people out there would need my services, to understand about first aid? What gave you that drive? Was that you thinking about it, or did someone else suggest it was a good idea?
It's interesting. It's come from a few different areas. So when I was nursing, I obviously saw a huge number of times where either first aid has made a good positive difference and saved somebody's life, or where really occasionally first aid hasn't been given and somebody is hugely scarred. I mean, there was one child in particular who was so badly burnt when I was working on the burns unit that they needed to be admitted. If their mum had just known to run their arm under cool running water, that simple, then they would never have needed to be in hospital for weeks and weeks and weeks. So
I think sometimes, especially to people who do first aid, it's quite natural to think of these things, but people have got no experience of it. They just don't know what to do they, under this? And also you've got the stress level of someone having some kind of burn or other injury. Mm-hmm. They don't think straight sometimes, people, especially if I've no experience. I'm ex-military, and also I've worked the last 12 years with the cadet forces. So we do Heart Start and YFA and all the other things with all of our cadets anyway. So it's natural for us to one, understand it and work with people learning it, but also then apply it when things happen. But people outside of that, people have never learned any first aid or got into a situation before where someone's injured. It's still very unnatural for them to go forward and do things, isn't it?
It's very frightening for them, and they're absolutely petrified about making things worse. Yeah. And of course, when you get onto sort of something like CPR, you really can't make it any worse. So it's just encouraging people to have the confidence to move forward. And the other side, and the other reason why I wanted to set up my own first aid training company was because, and you'll recognize this as well, that actually there is a huge spectrum of good training companies, and unfortunately a wealth of appalling training companies out there. And the very minimum training qualification you need to be a first aid trainer, you will be horrified to hear, is a 3-day first aid at work. And there's plenty of people out there training without or with just that very basic qualification. That's all you need to be covered on insurance. And so I wanted to set up a company that I was truly proud of, that everybody has got a medical health, emergency services, or a military medic qualification. So I've now got 41 trainers who are all extremely well qualified in terms of what they can teach, but also they have superb skills as to how they teach. And those two things are absolutely critical.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's not just in the first aid field. There's poor training across the spectrum in business, isn't there, in all different areas. So, so tell us a little bit about the process then. So your mentor from the British Library had suggested the Goldman Sachs program to you. What was the process like? I'm not going to say too much. I've been through it myself, so I understand the work side of things is a challenge, but also the interview process. So just tell us your experience in that space.
Well, I found it pretty challenging. You certainly feel like you have earned it once you've gone through the other side.
Yeah.
I went to one of the briefing sessions and I sat next to this lovely guy, and we sat and chatted, and we ended up swapping numbers and things. And we both ended up on the same cohort together, which is lovely. He's one of my really, really good friends now. But we both sort of encouraged each other along because it's one heck of a form to go through.
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
yeah, and the interview process itself is pretty thorough. And I've got to be honest that actually being grilled around my numbers is not something I feel particularly comfortable about. I feel more comfortable now I've been on the Goldman Sachs and actually have a better grasp about what all the different numbers mean. But I knew I was in profit. I knew that all the things were right. My husband is my finance director, so I'm terribly sorry. I do delegate quite a lot of that to make sure that he's ensuring that the detail is as it should be, and I concentrate on the overview more. And so I found that element and being really grilled on my numbers and probed as to my EBITDA and my whatever. It was like
Yeah, there'll be a lot of people out there hear EBITDA and actually don't know what EBITDA means. So
yeah, it should be yeah. It's your nice profit that keeps your life going at the end of it all. But yeah, so that was good. But obviously they were quite forgiving on that because I certainly wasn't word perfect on that. It was a very thorough process, and it felt a very fair process. And at the end of it, I felt extremely proud that I'd been accepted, because that's important, because my first ever meeting at Goldman Sachs, when you have your first cohorts and you all meet each other, I had the most horrendous imposter syndrome that I have ever experienced. I looked around this room of outstanding entrepreneurs. They were all introducing each other, or introducing themselves. And I thought, what the heck am I doing in here? They've made a mistake. Somehow
you're not the only one. I think everyone who goes through this process feels the same. You're there with up to 35 other people, and you think, I'm nowhere near as capable or gifted as these people. But when you start to get to know them, you actually understand that you're all very similar. And through
absolutely.
they've won, part of that process of paper and also the interview process. One, identify if you're capable of learning and you've got some of the basics to be able to understand what they're going to teach in the modules, but also that your business itself is also capable of growing and has got some prospects of moving to where you want it to be through the process. Because it's pointless taking a business on where the individual or the business itself can't go anywhere with the additional effort that's put in from the program. And I think that's the key thing, isn't it? Is making sure you and your business are capable of that growth, and then apply the learning and the knowledge, and hopefully it'll take you further.
No, definitely. And the other thing that Goldman Sachs are very good at is recruiting incredibly nice, thoroughly good sorts who you really want to be with. And running your own business can be incredibly lonely.
Yes.
And your own extremely good friends do not get it. If they're not running a business and understanding that, they think that you've got the freedom to do everything because you're in charge of your own time, but they sometimes struggle with the fact that actually if you do go out for the afternoon because you can, then actually the work that you were going to do at that afternoon, you have to do some other time. And that there is always a payoff for you do. And how, if you look at the number of hours that we all work and what we make from it, entrepreneurs generally work ridiculously long hours.
Yeah.
And are passionate about what they do.
I think the other thing is they always see that the business is money. So what you've brought in revenue is your money. And in reality, it's not. It's the business's money. It's only the amount that is allocated to you in a drawing or a salary is yours. The rest of it is the business, and you need to reinvest. You need to pay staff. You need to pay for facilities. If you've got an office, you've got to pay for that, rates. There's a lot of outgoings, isn't there? So a lot of people don't see that, because when they work for a company, they just get in their pocket their money. They don't actually see what the business is doing and how much of it has to be rolled back into the business to generate the next set of revenue and profit. It's
no, absolutely. There is a huge naivety out there about what it takes to actually run a successful business. And what you're doing. So if you're not training, so I get sort of, okay, so you're not running the training courses anymore. So what are you doing? Well, I'm certainly not sitting on my bottom doing nothing.
I think there's also assumptions. A lot of things just happen. Like, if you've got the best mousetrap in the world, just people turn up at your door to buy them. In reality, no one knows who you are, what your products are, how good you are. That sales and marketing activity has to be done first before people start coming as well. And I think people are quite naive about that. And I meet a lot of people starting business first time are very naive about how you actually generate business. And they just assume it's just going to appear for them in front of them. But it's not quite the case, is it?
No, a lot of people are serial dreamers, I think, as well. I work as, I volunteer as a mentor for the British Library for startups. And some of the people that we see are serial dreamers. They have fantastic business ideas, but actually they're still working in their regular job. So they talk about the fact that they've started a business and they ran it for 2 years and made whatever. But actually, was it really a business? When you drill down into it, it was a lovely dream. And it was quite a nice idea, and they invested to support it. But actually, it was either going to take off and they needed to give up their job and invest their time, or it wasn't a goer.
I've been to quite a few entrepreneurs meetup groups, and there's a lot of people like that. You sit around having a coffee with these people, and they've got these wonderful ideas that they're going to do, or they've just started from the kitchen table while they're still working, but they're not really a business at that point. It's not generating a reasonable amount of income that you could run a business with and pay other people to grow it. So very different. So we're getting off track a little bit. So let's try and pull back in a little bit. So you went through the interview and the paperwork process. When did you start? Which cohort were you on, and what year?
I was cohort 6, London. I was 2014.
So you were still on the national the local program.
Yes, it was amazing. I think that the online is working really well, but there was something very, very special about turning off your phone, putting that Wednesday afternoon to one side, and having that as your time to invest in you and to invest in your business, and to spend time with other people.
So how many people on your cohort?
I think about 35. I've got my lovely book. I was having a flick through it yesterday, actually.
So it's about a 6 months program, wasn't it? Every Wednesday afternoon, I think it was.
It was a huge time commitment. So that was one of the things you had to be able to commit to, and you had to. It was 100% commitment, because Goldman Sachs and UCL, as it was then, were committed to it as well. So everybody was giving to you, and you had to clear your diary and make sure you could commit. And that was taken very seriously. And one of the things I enjoyed most, which I always have done in sort of mastermind type things, is really getting down to the nitty-gritty in other people's business as well, because you get real insight to your own, but actually the benefit of other people without all the baggage looking at a business, I think it's so exciting. And I am absolutely in awe. The diversity of the businesses that we had in our cohort, I'm sure it was the same with yours. I mean, you name it, it was there.
The businesses that you have in your cohort, yeah, we had all sorts, from people making cakes through to people servicing water utility equipment, also fitness. People run fitness businesses, all sorts of things in our cohort. So tell us a few that you remember from your cohort.
So we had. Am I allowed to name companies, or shall I just say what sort of thing? Okay, so we've got Phil from Scratch Food. So Phil came out of uni, and with his friend they set up Scratch, which was it's in all the main supermarkets, and you're using chicken based to make. You've got your little pot with everything in there to make your meal, so you take it home. We had Manda, who was also food business. John, who was the friend I met when we joined up together, he is a talent agent. Holly is a journalista, so she's a journalist, PR and journalism, health journalism. We had taxi company, obviously having a really horrendous time with Uber. We've got a tea sommelier, a painter and decorator. And then all sorts of people working for sort of government type things, like doing fancy things with data. I had one guy who was literally minting money because he had this very, very special algae that he had discovered that had a scale.
I thought you were going to say that.
But he was with some other chemists, and they had found this algae that gave you an omega-3 that didn't taste of fish and was suitable for vegans. So he's just ridiculous amounts of profit. Computer safety, that side of things. Basically, you name it. There was a total breadth of different businesses that sometimes you didn't even know was a business out there. Someone that takes photos of everything, their archive, so they go all around the different palaces or the different museums and take the photos, put in the archive of all the royal collection and the Natural History Museum and things. Architects, we had a couple of architects. Absolutely fabulous businesses. Records as well. So, and also as well as her records, Karen is a sort of importer. I mean, she had one of the biggest businesses, all sorts of different strands. So we learned massively about the different businesses, and she was buying other businesses and acquiring them too. So she was on a different level. And kitchen manufacturers we had loads. Fabulous.
So from a group wise, your growth group's about 5 people in each, were they?
Yeah, 5 or 6.
Yeah, 5 or 6. So when you started the modules, and say in our cohort, there was different modules were better for different people depending on experience and the type of business. So some people found the finance modules more important, some the sales and marketing, some HR. There was a variety of different areas that we covered in the program, but everybody had a little bit an area that was more important to them. So So what about yourself? What were the key ones that you found the most beneficial to you and your business when you went through the program?
For me, it was things like the structure and the operations. So as a result of 10KSB, we ended up going to a far bigger CRM system, so customer relation management system, that we could then automate. So we've gone to Infusionsoft. So we're now able to automate different systems. And thank goodness we did, because when COVID hit, we were still quite paper-based. And because we had that structure, we were able to move quite quickly to do something that actually we'd been meaning to do ages before, and cut the paper out of our business. But we had to, and we had to do it quickly. But we did have the infrastructure in place that it wasn't as big a jump as it would have been.
Yeah. So that's the operation side. What else then was really key?
The employment side of things. So I'm employing more people than I was previously, and understanding, the sort of HR side of things, because people management is sometimes quite challenging.
Definitely.
So that side of things. In terms of the finance, I said my husband's my finance director, and in terms of cash flow, people pay for our courses before they take them. So we're in a very lucky position on that. And in fact, it was quite interesting. There were a fair few service businesses on our cohort, and apparently it was the first time that they've had something like a third of the cohort who weren't impacted by cash flow.
Yeah.
So I know cash flow is the biggie. So some of the people who were running multi-million-pound businesses, I was astounded that actually sometimes they were so short of money at the end of the month that they were worried they weren't going to make payroll.
Yeah.
And that was a real eye-opener to me. I hadn't even thought that that could happen, because I couldn't sleep at night if that was the case.
Coming from my business, well, originally we're changing what we're doing anyway, but for anybody who buys something and resells it is always going to be in that situation, because they take an order from the customer, they have to buy whatever it is they're going to sell to the customer, sell it to the customer, and the customer wants to pay then normally 30 days later. So the more sales you do, the less money you have, because you normally run out of your credit line. So you're getting more and more successful. So you're getting more and more sales, buying more stuff, and you get to the point where you can't actually have any more 30-day credit with a supplier. So you end up having to use your own money to do it. So it can be a challenge. Definitely.
Yeah, there were a lot of people in our cohort for whom that module was absolutely critical to them remaining in business, and how to get their, the debt as well, because we don't issue certificates until people have paid us, so we get paid, which I hadn't appreciated. We're very lucky to be in the industry that we're in, where people generally do pay before they take the training.
So coming on to those modules then, so you as an individual had learned something new, whether it was finance, HR, sales and marketing, whatever. Then how did you take that knowledge back and introduce it into your business, and actually get your staff involved in that learning process and in changing your business, to the better with what you've learned?
Oh, they were pretty good about embracing the different changes, particularly when you can explain to them that things like the automation will save them doing some of the really laborious tasks. So if there's the same email that you're sending out to, a welcome email or a thank you for doing the course, we hope you enjoyed it, here's your certificate, and we can automate that so that they can just double check and release the certificate once all the checks are in place. How much time is that going to save?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So if you're explaining that, and also explain that we're going to do things better. They were quite excited at the fact that I was disappearing on Wednesdays, not because I was disappearing, but because I'd come back with a fresh head on, and invigorated myself, to share my knowledge. And there is nothing like the sort of the treat feeling, the investment that I felt on the 10KSB program, to be in a room with such lovely people, and to feel spoiled, even to the extent that our tea and biscuits was above the usual standards of tea and biscuits that we would have here. You felt spoiled. When we went on our residential in Windsor, it was really special. When do I ever get to go away with a group of really good people who by that time were becoming really good friends and have stayed really good friends, who you can just sound things off because, and sometimes people were having really rubbish times during the whole thing. And sometimes people were having really exciting times during it. And you were able to share in all that and put in your two pennyworth and mold how things were happening in a sort of knowledgeable and helpful way. And it was really invigorating. And I think that rubbed off on the whole rest of the team. I mean, just talking about feeling really spoiled, when we went for our very, very final congratulatory dinner thing right at the end, so we'd done everything. We came out of UCL and everything was shut down. So we were the only people on the campus because Take That were playing, were recording on their own in the center of the UCL campus. It was sealed off because it was secret, but it was just our cohort that came through. So we were a secret audience of 35 KSBers having our private Take That concert, which was absolutely icing on the cake, totally unplanned. But do you know what? It felt completely fitting with the way we had been treated and invested in and made to feel really special and valued throughout the program. It is something extremely unusual, and it was something that was Penny, who recommended it to me, said this will be life-changing, and she's right. And it gives you a certain pride. You've got it too, oh, have you been through 10 KSB? Well, actually, if we were going to do business together, you've got a level of trust and integrity, and you've already been pre-qualified. So, let's connect. So
going back to what you were saying about automation, being in IT myself, I think one of the benefits of automation is, one, response time. It's quick to respond to things, and secondly, it's consistent. You always get the same results, and I think that's one of the real benefits of using automation. And we use automation a lot in what we do, but we use it for data center infrastructure and cloud services. But again, it gives you that level of response and also consistency with it. I think it's a major thing. So you got to the end of the program, you did your graduation. Have you done a lot of the alumni events? So I've
yes,
been to a few in London that were in, the British Library was used one time. There was one, I think, in the Serpentine. There was a few in London we went to.
There's been a couple in the Serpentine. There's been some amazing ones in the Tate. There was one in the Natural History Museum. So yes, I've been to pretty much all of them. I love it. Absolutely value it massively. Went to the new Bloomberg building as well. And when you get the most incredible speakers, there's also the lockdown events, which haven't happened recently, but I know that they're going to come back again. Which, again, the most incredible speakers. I don't think it would be very COVID secure because we're all in a very tiny, again, it's that feeling of being somewhere special and having access to some really incredible speakers. I'm just off the scale speakers that you're in a very small group and you can ask them very pertinent questions. And I don't think there's many other groups like this or structures who have that accessibility for that. Incredibly valuable, really, really interesting. And I'm missing that, particularly in COVID times. We've had some virtual meetups, but it's not the same.
Yeah, and so one of I remember is seeing the Minister for Small Businesses at Westminster. So they took us through Westminster, and there was by the side of the river at the back of.
I was there. We must have walked past each other.
Yeah, and we had that event. We had the minister, the MP for small business there. That was quite an interesting one. And then on the lockdown ones, I remember Baroness Brady talking about the challenges she had. I think that was about October, November last year, and some of the challenges she'd had being a woman in football. because it wasn't normal for women to work in senior jobs within football. And she was talking about the challenges she had and how she looked at it in a different way, and how she made it successful because she just looked at it in a different way and took the challenge on. I think also, was it one of the graduations, we had Tim Peake, the astronaut, as well. I think that was amazing. And some of the things he was talking about, like, things to try and, apply stress, stick you in a cave for 5 days, underground, and make it difficult to get to the point where we see when you break, and see when that stress level gets to the point where you can't cope anymore, and what triggers it, so that when you
it's like military SAS, isn't it?
That's it. So then so that when you start to feel that that's happening, you can stop it. And that's the key thing, because you can't really lose it when you're on a space station orbiting the Earth, can you? So it's finding ways to understand, how you react, and what the triggers of that are, so you can stop it happening in the future. So very, very, very interesting. So
really, I think COVID's been stressing us, and pushing our buttons.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm impacted by that as well, because my mother died of it a week and a half ago.
So sorry.
Not the best week to find out. My mother died, and my father was diagnosed with cancer on the Thursday of the same week.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I've had a little bit of a challenging couple of weeks, and those people who watch my videos, I normally 5 a week. I do one each day, but the last couple of weeks, that's why I've not been around doing them, because it's just been a little bit of a challenging time for me. But,
my goodness, what a nightmare for you. I'm so sorry.
But yeah, such is life, as they say. But tell me a little bit about your business then, and how the Goldman Sachs program has impacted the business subsequently. So how have you grown? About people, you don't have to give us figures, but give us some idea of, are you double what you were doing before, 4 times? Give us an idea how the Goldman Sachs program has affected you and your business going forward, and on what your like goals are for the future, what you're looking to achieve over the next 1, 3, 5 years time.
Well, I think one of the main things it gave me was the ability to think big. And I think that you don't think big generally as a business owner. You try and be realistic, because otherwise you get knocked back. But what it gave me was a belief in myself, so that if I want to partner with someone, I don't look at another similar size small business. I see who are the market leaders in the area, who are going to open some doors for me, who can I help, and approach them. So consequently, I've been able to achieve things that I would never have dreamed of without that degree of self-belief. And so I set up a sort of social enterprise called StaySafe.support. And it was something I felt passionately I really wanted to do, which was for older people and those caring for them. And I wanted to set it up. I found somebody else who wanted to join me with it. So there were the 2 of us. And we looked at who were the big players in that area. So if you look at older people and those caring for them, let's go to Age UK. You're looking at accident prevention, let's go to ROSPA. Let's go to care. Let's go to whatever. Who are the big names in there? Well, let's contact Esther Ranson.
Yeah.
So we did all that and ended up doing a couple of really fabulous conferences at the Royal Hospital Chelsea with Hugh Pym, the editor from the BBC Health correspondent, coming along as well, and partnering up with Age UK. I don't think I made any money on it. I broke even. I got the feeling that I'd actually done something really good. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I've still got it to move on and to work with, and those partnerships are incredibly valuable. But it was something that I could never have done without feeling that I was worthy of having those conversations. And actually, they were very happy to work with me. So consequently, ROSPA and Age UK endorsed my book. I've got the Child Accident Prevention Trust endorsing another one. I'm now writing mental health first aid courses. So who are the best? Where's the best mental health hospital for that sort of thing? Well, it's Maudsley. So I'm working in partnership with Maudsley Learning, and we're working together, creating online and virtual workshops and practical workshops together. And we're pooling it together. And they're just as happy to have my input and what I'm bringing as I am to have theirs. It's an equal partnership. And I think sometimes you sort of think I'm a small business, whereas actually I've got a heck of a lot to bring. And I've got a great skill set. I've got a lot of followers. And if we combine my skill set with your skill set and pool it together, then we can do really great things. So I think it was the belief in partners. So I work with the Royal College of Chiropractors. I'm recommended through Bazarat, which is the sports therapists, work with tiny childminders, work with other nurseries, work with big schools, oh, well, let's go and do Eton's first aid training. Okay. It's I'll approach them. The worst that can happen is they say no.
That's definitely true, and I think coming back to some of the things you said about other people in the alumni, it's very different to when you go into a normal networking session that might be the local chamber event or something, where everybody's going around trying to sell to everybody in the room. It's all about, tell me what you do. I'm really interested in what you've done and what's your experience been like, and how can I help you? Which is a very different. It's like giving, isn't it?
Very different. It's not book your one-to-one. Oh my goodness, those chamber things.
Yeah.
Well, hold on a minute. Why do I want to spend an hour having coffee with you when I don't know you? And actually,
it's a very different view of the world. And I think, like what we're doing today, it's all about helping one another. We're trying to help you promote your business. We're interested in people to understand what the benefits of the Goldman Sachs program are. And also, hopefully people will start to watch some of my videos as well. It's a natural thing, isn't it, that we all benefit for it. So
absolutely. And I can share them across my platforms too, and you will then gain some of my followers who will be interested in what you're doing, and it's a win-win-win. It's all about collaborating and sharing and not being in competition. I mean, I think the very premise of some of those small networking groups where we only have one of a particular type, it just sort of says it all, really.
Yeah. I can say my view in the world is you're never really competing with other people. What you're doing is either trying to help them or they're trying to help you, and you can work together, like a partnership or something. I never think that we're always in competition and everybody's a competition to me, and I've never viewed it that way. But a lot of people you meet do think like that. It's just a very strange view of the world. It's been great having you on. Really interesting understanding where you've come from, and that foundation of working in hospitals, in nursing, and in management later. It's a really invaluable experience to be able to do what you do with first aid training and ensuring people do it properly. Like we said earlier, there's a lot of people out there teaching really poor first aid, and it's a shame really, because the people then don't really learn a great deal. They don't have the confidence to apply it. So when something does happen, they tend to step back rather than stepping forward to do it. So it is a real shame. I'm just going to.
One of the things that I feel really passionate about is making it truly accessible. Yeah. So that's why another thing that Goldman sort of encouraged me to do was set up onlinefirstaid.com, and thank goodness I did. So I set that up about 8 years ago. So looking at that, if I hadn't had 36 online multi-award winning courses when COVID hit, I would have been hit a lot harder than I was. So I'm now able to offer the online, the practical, the remote. I'm able to offer free for people because I've got the spread to be able to do that, to get the books out and to get the breadth of information that is readily accessible, that means that you can have touch points across different platforms, so that in terms of pure marketing, people will get to know, like, and trust you quicker.
Yeah.
And more deeply as well. And that again is something that we learnt through Goldman. And the other thing with Goldman people is that they tend to be doers.
Yeah, very true. Very true. But you know, coming to first aid, I think everybody should know at least some basic first aid, because you don't know who is going to have an accident at what time in front of you, and the quicker you can deliver some form of aid to them, whether it's a cut, you know, somebody falling and breaking something, someone going unconscious, and any of the issues that people might have, especially older people, you know, it's really important that someone can deal with it and help them quickly, because there's a much higher chance of them surviving if some form of first aid is delivered correctly, I should say. So it's making sure that they know what to do and they do the right thing. But yeah, it really is important. Well, what we'll do is put your contact details up. So if you're interested in speaking to Emma more about this, so you can find Emma through the website, which is www.firstaidforlife.org.uk. And like Emma said, it's practical and online first aid training. So there's a lot of stuff you can do online where, you know, at the moment, a lot of people are feeling that they don't want to be, they want to keep that social distancing. So, you know, online training is a perfect way of delivering that. But also later on, I think some of the practical training is the best way of delivering it, especially things that you need to actually practice. It's hard to do something that you see online practically at home when you don't have the Annie or all the other things that you might use in the actual practical training, isn't it?
It's a bit of both. It depends what you want to learn and things. So we've got practical, which is socially distanced, that we can do throughout lockdown. So we're COVID secure. We've got online, we've got remote, we've got blended learning. So if you want to learn first aid, basically, we can help you. And bucket loads of free online resources as well. So there really is, you know, ample information and support out there for those that want to learn.
Okay. Well, thanks ever so much for your time today. And say anyone wants to learn, go and have a look at the website, and I'll see you again next Thursday for this, or you know, we'll be putting a schedule out next week for all the other sessions we normally do, which we normally grill someone on a Tuesday who's in the enterprise space, and we talk about small business on a Monday and enterprise business on a Wednesday. So you know, pick one of those up. But thanks again, Emma, and
thank you so much for inviting me. I mean, I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and yeah, thank you.
No problem at all. Bye then.